2013 is the 40th anniversary of the diplomatic cooperation relations between Vietnam and Australia. Australia is a long-time partner of Vietnam in the development of education, training, healthcare, green technology transfer. Sharing Vietnam Today talked to Professor Peter Newman, an expert on green growth, on the method of application of green growth in Vietnam's economy by looking back over the green growth adaptation process of the other leading countries. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sharing Vietnam on VTC 10 NetViet. Today our guest speaker is Mr. Peter Newman, who is a lecturer, a researcher that has published many books on the green growth strategies of many countries, and he has traveled the world to studies about it, and now he's here with us today to share about the current situations of green growth around the world as well as in Vietnam. So let's welcome him. Thank you, Mr. Peter, for having us here today. So first of all, can you share with us what does green growth mean and what are the aspects and industry that green growth should be applied into and irrelevant to the Vietnamese context?
Green growth cuts across the whole economy. It is everything that we do, and it is about improving our wealth and our well-being whilst reducing the footprint, the impact. So in technical terms, how do you increase the GDP whilst reducing the amount of fossil fuels that are used? That's usually how it's measured. And the reality is, it is happening in many parts of the world now. It's no longer something to just talk about. We need to strategize how best to do it, because it's the new economy. It is the basis of how we are going to make wealth in the future.
What are the impacts of green growth in the sustainable development of any nations, especially for the developing countries like Vietnam?
Yeah, I think in the short term, it helps to focus the priorities. You don't just keep doing what you are doing. You must change. Every country must change, because the last 50 years of development have been based around fossil fuels. So we need to transition to renewable energy. And that's a different way to do it. But the costs of renewable energy are coming down dramatically. So photovoltaics and wind power, these new technologies are now easily available, and they must be brought in. We must overcome the barriers that keep them from being enhanced in our system. In my area, I concentrate on cities and transport. And transport is something that everybody can see needs improving. We don't like our cities to be stuck in traffic jams with more and more cars and motorbikes just filling the streets. Lots of pollution, lots of fossil fuels. We need to transition to a city and a region where we have less of that. So we can have a better economy, a better place for people to live, and yet it has less impact. And we document the stories of those. It's you have to build good infrastructure. Good buses and trains in cities are transformative, but at the same time, simple things like putting in bicycle lanes, better footpaths, enabling people to walk, and having the safety to walk. These things are relatively easy in terms of cost, but it takes time. But that's the kind of agenda where you can make a better city, a better region, a better economy, but it's not using as many fossil fuels.
So in the next reportage, please look at some of the projects of green growth being applied here in Vietnam. Vietnam is currently embarked on the restructuring of the green growth activities. The draft strategy of green growth is an important milestone, implicated the fact that the Vietnamese government considers green growth and low carbon is a key driving force for sustainable development. This model is considered by the United Nations and many countries around the world to be a development initiative towards more sustainable energy use and start applying for their cities and urbans. In Vietnam, eco-tours in Hoi An City and Thái Nguyên Province with community tourism model can be regarded as the pioneer cities for green growth in Vietnam. At the same time, the government is also paying attention to upgrade the train system. This is an important factor in the development of environmental friendly transportation. Green growth efforts contributed significantly to the creation of the fundamentals for Vietnam to become an industrialized modern city in 2020, but it will lead to many difficulties in making priorities, financial commitment, and effective collaborations. Even though you have just come to Vietnam, however, you have conducted many research on the green growth strategies of Vietnam. So, can you share with us what are your thoughts and assessment about the strengths and weaknesses of those strategies? And how would you compare it to other developing countries that you have traveled to? And furthermore, compare it to the developed countries?
Well, it's really early days. The new green growth strategy is just out. It is now being implemented, and in particular there are a number of regional green growth strategies, and each of the regions, the provinces, each of the cities need to develop their own green growth strategies, and that's a journey. They're all just beginning. So I've recently become interested to participate in the green growth strategy for Hue, where there is a very strong commitment to educate the citizens, to demonstrate how best to do it, and to make some real trials. There are some places that are going backwards. They're going the wrong way. They can't see that this is the next major agenda. That's not the case in Vietnam. You know this is what should be done, and you're beginning that process. And you've got a lot of characteristics that will enable it to be very successful. There is a commitment to it. There is a strength of character about this. And what I see at this conference is a lot of research that is going on in the universities, very relevant to achieving green growth. Now, we have documented in our book, Green Urbanism in Asia, a number of places that are leaders in this. And I'd have to say Singapore has done a lot. And they had traditional economic growth. And then they said, no, we need to channel this now into a green growth. So they are demonstrating in a number of new technologies and their transport systems, their buildings, how to achieve leadership in this area. So I've seen in Singapore a real global leader. Korea is doing similarly good things. India and China just beginning that transition, and because they've got such big economies there, it takes a long time to turn them around and into a new direction. But I don't think they will be holding up the world in this.
To apply green growth strategies into the context of any economy, any nations, what could go wrong, and how would you advise in order to solve it?
You look at what is going on in other parts of the world, but you learn from it and say, what would work here? Now, what I find in Vietnam is that there is a strong sense that you are going to achieve a future of your own, where you can apply those principles and the practices that are being done elsewhere, but you're going to find Vietnamese solutions. And that's the first and major step. Other barriers will be financial. Is there enough money to put into these change areas, these innovations? And it's going to be reorienting priorities.
What are the supports that the Australian delegation and experts has provided for Vietnam in terms of know-how transfer, in terms of knowledge and trainings?
The partnership we have had is in education. We have a new doctorate in sustainable development that we are developing. It's about green growth, and it will be providing scholarships for people to work in their own country, not take them to Australia, but work on green growth issues where they are, because those solutions are going to be the important ones. That's my dream. It's a vision that I think many places are going to try to achieve.
With the projects that would be about to happen here in Vietnam with Australia, how would you advise on the future cooperations between the Vietnam and Australia, other than education and training? What some other aspect in cooperation that could be done?
But I think that the kind of agricultural research and urban research and energy research and so on that's needed needs to be appropriately funded by an Australian government that sees there is benefit in these partnerships. I hope that the Vietnamese governments and provinces and the universities sector here can work with Australia in saying, this is what we need help on. We really do need this kind of expertise. Can you come and help us with this? And I hope that we can work on this together. It's a big agenda. It's going to require all of our skills, all of our money, all of our intercultural agreements, the kind of goodwill that's been generated over 40 years now of doing this. The next 40 years is going to be about green growth.
Thank you, Mr. Peter, so much for all of your sharing today, and I hope that all of those plans will be success. And that's the end of Sharing Vietnam today. Thank you so much for watching us, and I hope that you get a good picture on how has the green growth strategy been applied into Vietnam and what could be done. Any questions and concern, please email at sharingvietnam@vtc.vn. And for the last minute, please look at some of the documentaries about the cooperation between Australian and Vietnamese experts in this field. Thank you and see you again.